This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, for Sunday, June 5th, 2005. Episode number 8.
The BBC would like to announce that the next scene is not considered suitable for family viewing.
And it looks as though we're in for a splendid afternoon sport on SB127, Upper Class Twit of the Year show.
And now for something completely different.
We are all Twits now.
What a great twit!
Excellent. Here we are once again. Seems like we just did this. God. By the way, I want to apologize to everybody who's trying to get the TWiTcast. You're all trying to get it at once. That's really the fundamental problem. And you'll get it eventually. It's just trying to get it all on the same day. It's going to be a real traffic jam because people are still getting number 7, and now number 8 is going to come out, and it's just going to be forget it. What do we do? Kevin, we need more bandwidth.
I got it really fast, actually. I was using BitTorrent, and it came down to just a couple minutes.
I think the best way to get it is BitTorrent, but apparently people don't, I don't know, maybe they don't understand how to use BitTorrent or something. Just real simply, get Azureus, Azureus. It's free, it's Java.
People are afraid of the lawsuits.
Nah, you can't be sued for BitTorrent.
Well, I know that, and you know that, but I think a lot of people, I've run into 3 people in the last 2 weeks and be like, I'm not going to use BitTorrent. I'm going to get sued.
The critical thing is to leave
actually,
once you're done downloading it, is to simply leave it running so that people can continue to upload or use your upload.
Oh, our listeners, the ones who use BitTorrent, really know that. There's about 1,300 seeds right now for episode 7. So the good news is with all those seeds, it comes down really quickly.
That's awesome.
So let's remind everyone, as long as you're not downloading copyrighted material, you won't get in trouble using BitTorrent. And even if you are downloading copyrighted material, you probably never get caught. It's when you're hosting or directing the copyrighted material that you might get sued by a larger organization.
So it's an amazing tool. Like those day of patches that come out for games.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Sometimes, and some games that you download nowadays are mods for games run into the hundreds of megabytes, and it's simply the easiest way to get it.
Somebody emailed me the other day saying that they couldn't download an episode of System because their parents wouldn't allow BitTorrent to be installed.
Right. Well,
actually, I can understand that because I've cleaned up some systems where kids haven't stopped downloading stuff and they've been trashed. I mean, just nasty, nasty stuff.
Well, I've seen adults do that.
Software.
Certainly not limited to children. I've seen fewer children do that.
Yeah, kids are smarter than that. The key on this is use it. It's safe. You're only downloading legal stuff when you're downloading the TWiTcast. There are some businesses, soldiers in Iraq, and we have, by the way, guys, I don't know if you know it, we have a number of listeners who are on active duty in Iraq. They can't get MP3 files. That's blocked by the military, and the BitTorrent ports are blocked because it does use non-standard ports. So for them, I offer a straight download zipped file, and that way it's just a plain old download of a zip, and they can get that. That's at leoville-downloads.com/twit. But I prefer you use, that comes off my server, I prefer you use BitTorrent if you can. Are we all in agreement Azureus is the best? I mean, I just think it works. It's
and you could there's an RSS plugin for it, so you can make it work just like a podcast client.
Exactly. Or
that is really handy.
Yeah. So it's azureus.sourceforge.net. It's a free download. Install it. Somebody said they're having trouble with the RSS client feed. I don't know. But all you have to do is you have to go to the TWiT site, twit.tv/ this is the BitTorrent site, HI-B. That's for high quality BitTorrent version. So that's, again, twit.tv/HI-B. Of course, you all have it now, so I don't know who I'm telling this to. And then if you have Azureus, download the .torrent file. Just right-click on it and save it, and then double-click it. It'll be a blue frog. That's the default icon. Download it and double-click it. Azureus will launch, and you'll get it in like 3 minutes. You'll get it really quickly, and then leave it open so that other people can get it. There right now, as I'm looking at this, 1,557 seeds of the 7th episode, the last episode, and 322 people are downloading it. And I guarantee you, because there's so many seeds, they're all getting it as fast as their bandwidth can handle it. It's just the easiest way to get it. So that's enough of that. As I've said a few times, it's just taking some time, but we now have two big players, two really big media companies that want to distribute TWiT, and we're going to let them do it because it's non-exclusive. They're not going to use advertising or anything. So this will all be moot soon. There'll be plenty of ways to get TWiT. We know you want to get it. Back now to the news, boys and girls. Let me introduce you all. First of all, Kevin Rose.
Yes, hello.
Beautiful Los Angeles. Things going well for you, sir?
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Calm down after the system.
Day to day.
Yeah. Are you taping a new system? You working on it?
Yeah, new system comes out this week, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, another episode.
Oh, you wasted no time. That's great. Robert Heron is here, the lab man, the lab meister.
Hello.
He works at PC Magazine, right?
Yes, for their website. I run their HDTV lab.
And
check out the latest and greatest.
That's his favorite topic, but he talks about everything. We, of course, welcome David Prager. Hasn't been with us too many times. This is his second TWiTcast, third if you include the pilot. And David is still at TV. And
I work for a cable television network.
A small cable television network devoted to games, gear, gadgets, and G-Jaws. What is the fourth
Gigabytes.
G? Gigabytes.
I think.
Not anymore.
Girls. Games, gear. What is the big show now on G4? Is it Attack of the Show or is it X-Play?
The X-Play and the Attack of the Show are the two main shows.
What about the donut show, the driving donuts? What's it called?
You know what? That's another show that is turning a lot of heads. Just because I guess it's just cars and girls, so
can't go wrong.
I guess not.
And he's a producer there. He's the guy who put the web server up the guy's butt.
Oh, jeez.
You actually didn't do that by hand.
No.
You had a surgeon.
No, we got a doctor. He had some tools and
a shaky.
That was your idea, though, right, David? Wasn't it?
No, it was absolutely not.
He implemented it. It wasn't his idea.
Hey, how about we do this?
He was the guy who figured out how you could do it. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget the star of our show, the chairman of the board of Slam Dance Industries, Mr. Patrick Norton.
I'm still trying to get my head away from that whole web server butt thing. Hi, everybody.
I'm so sorry. Hey, at least I didn't use a sledgehammer to do it.
Is there a wipe tracker in there?
So,
where are the log files?
This is we're taping this in the evening of Sunday, June 5th. Tomorrow, June 6th, Steve Jobs gets up on the stage at the Worldwide Developer Conference, and if the Wall Street Journal is to be believed, if CNET is to be believed, he will announce that future Macs will not have PowerPC chips in them, but will have instead Intel chips. That, to me, is a huge story. Huge story. You know, frankly, I've been saying this is the end of the world for Apple. That Apple is, this is Apple shooting itself in the foot, committing hara-kiri. It's Steve Jobs' ultimate act of arrogance. And the first person I thought of to call was John C. Dvorak, another member of the TWiT team who hasn't been here because his Skype is still not working. But so I actually used this technology they called a telephone and called John. And I asked him what he thought about all this.
So you should make this sound dour. I have just the opposite take that you have on this. I mean, you're making it sound like, first of all, let's go over this. And I did have this written up in 2003, and I expected it to happen last year in 2004 based on what I heard that was going on. It's possible that it took longer to do the middleware part, which is going to be the things that allow some of the software to run on the new platform, much the same way the PowerPC made its transition. Now, take a look at the timing on this, though. We had a 10-year period of the 68,000, then a 10-year period of the PowerPC, and now we're going to have a 10-year Intel period. I don't see that this is such a big deal in terms of the progress that the company's been making. I think this is going to be one of the greatest benefits for Apple that the company's could ever imagine.
Well, what do they stand to gain?
Well, what they stand to gain, first of all, is to, and I've been arguing that they should be doing this. They should have started doing this maybe 10 years ago, which is if they can bring out a standardized Intel platform running this BSD Unix that they have. Oh, I'm sorry, it's OS X. Running on a kind of a standardized PC platform, they can also manufacture standard PCs for people who want to maybe still use Windows, even though I think that there actually may be a swing toward OS X for Intel, which I call a Macintel.
So you think they're going to make a dual boot system that runs both Windows and Apple? Is that?
I think it's doable, and I think also if I had a choice, and I think I could speak for most PC users, even though you've abandoned the platform, I could say for most PC users, and I've just written this up for PC Magazine, it'll be running tomorrow. I think most of these computers that we have on our desk, the PC users, have all the appeal of a 1977 Plymouth.
I agree with you.
People will spend a few extra dollars to have a good-looking computer. That means Apple can sell against Dell and HP the same machine with a premium price, getting the margins that those other guys will never get, and pretty much decimate the market. I think this is probably the biggest possibly the biggest thing Apple has ever done in terms of potentially becoming a dominant computer.
But what about the Adobes and the Microsofts? How are they going to rewrite their software? What are they going to do?
Well, they've done it before, and in fact, Adobe seems to rewrite its software every 2 years, or every year for that matter. I mean, anyway, they're all constant. This is a recompilation thing anyway. Adobe already has the software running on the x86 system. How difficult can it be?
Oh, it could be very difficult because their Windows version relies on Windows API, which is non-existent.
There's a middleware company that Apple's involved with right now, and I have their name somewhere, but this is going to take care of that issue. This is not going to be as big a deal as you make it out to be.
So the middleware company I think you're thinking of is I had the name here. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a forgettable.
It's not a memorable name. Is it Transitive?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. In the change from 68,000 to PowerPC, these were very similar chips. They were able to make it possible for the operating system to run both with something called fat binaries. They had the program could run in both modes, and there was a transitional period. It wasn't a very happy period.
No, of course, and this won't be either. And in fact, one of the other things that Apple did was bring out that Power Macintosh upgrade card, which they can do again. So people can use the old machines and then put this card in and make a transition slowly. My argument is this, is that this is the time for Apple to do it. They can suffer through a transition like this, which, I agree with that part. It's not going to be easy. But with the iPod, iTunes thing making tons of money for them, this is the time to make this move, because this long-term is a fantastic idea.
Well, I think it's gutsy. I think we're going to look at tomorrow as the day Apple committed suicide, and here's why I think the exact opposite, John. First of all, they're on a platform that is far from moribund. I think that the Cell chip, which is a PowerPC-based chip, is a very exciting future chip. I think the Intel platform, on the other hand, has run out of steam. I think they're moving to a processor platform that is seeing the end of its line.
Well, there's a couple things there. One is that, apparently the story has it that Steve was stiffed by IBM concerning the Cell chip and kind of put it back in place to Sony.
I believe. I can see this being an arrogant move on Steve's part, an ego move, but I think it's going to be suicide. I,
again, disagree. The other thing is about the Cell chip. Both Jobs has been poo-pooing it as lousy. And the other guy who, of course, both of this is, these are questionable sources for criticism. Steve says this chip is no good, and then also Bill Gates has, I agree that this doesn't, this is coming from a guy who's got a competitive product. Right. But at the same time, Gates is complaining about this chip. And some of the people within Intel have some issues with this chip. So you think the new multi-threaded, multi-core Intel chips are nothing to be sneezed at.
No, I agree. The Pentium D and the hyper-threading and then dual cores, they're trying to keep this chip family alive, but it's not a long-term solution. You think the G5 is the end of the line for PowerPC from IBM?
Well, they probably will continue to upgrade the chip for their own internal uses, but...
What about the notion of Intel maybe doing something new for Apple? Do you think that's credible?
No.
It's going to be an Intel x86 chip.
It has to be. If they did something like what you just described, which nobody's said, that's purely just off the wall.
Highly speculative, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally. There's no evidence of this. Of course, you never know. But we would have known about something. When my original thesis, when I first stumbled onto the meetings, I had, thought what might happen that would be interesting, and I thought it would be kind of interesting if Apple went to the Itanium, because they could use it for... They could use it for the servers, and it would be different, and Intel's begging for people to buy the thing.
Well, that at least has a future. x86 under Intel It's end-of-line product.
Well, I mean, I'm not in agreement with that because, I mean, I know where you're coming from saying that, but in fact, you know, with the legacy out there and the fact that this chip is just getting faster and faster with the multi-cores, and I expect
but Intel says no 4 gigahertz.
No, nobody wants to do 4 gigahertz. They'd rather do more cores. I mean, you can double the performance by doubling the number of cores on the same die because things are shrinking so much.
I have 2 cores in my G5 right now. I have 2 processors.
Well, you're ahead of me.
But most people do. We're talking to John C. Dvorak, columnist for PC Magazine, and certainly a guy who, if anybody knows what's going on. So you believe the CNET report? You think this will happen tomorrow?
Yeah, I do, and the Wall Street Journal is also kind of, you know, saying it's a done deal. I mean, and there's a blogger out there, which I linked to in my blog, if you go to Dvorak.org/blog, who made this observation that he found a language observation. He looked at the articles and noticed that they weren't, neither CNET nor the Wall Street Journal had any weasel words in their stories.
They seem adamant, yeah.
You know, I mean, it was like, you know, we got this on good authority, and the newspapers nowadays are so gun shy about not weaseling out of, you know, some of these assertions that when they don't have them in there, that's actually a signal. So,
well, especially with Steve Jobs, you don't want to be a rumor monger with Steve Jobs. So,
yeah, well,
you have to wonder if somebody from Apple is actually feeding this story to the Journal and to CNET.
Well, you know, he's done that before because he's. You know, CNET looks like it's picking the story up from the Journal, but, you know, Jobs plays favorites with the high-end media, and most of the people are irked with him about it because he'll, you know, put everybody on an embargo to a certain date and then give the story to Newsweek so they can run it the day before.
Or Mossberg.
Yeah, Mossberg's a big, he's like a kind of a stooge for Apple.
And he's at the Journal, and I could easily see them feeding this to Mossberg and him feeding it upstairs.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. Excellent.
Well, it scares the heck out of me. It doesn't seem like it's necessary. I think Apple's in a good position right now. It is a very gutsy move. I mean, your scenario is attractive. If they could start shipping computers that would run both Windows and OS X, I think there's a big market for that.
I think it's a huge market for it, and I think the other upside for Apple would be that they get one of the problems they're always going to have with only selling 1 million computers a quarter compared to the 100 to 175 million machines that are sold every year. This is a ridiculously low number. Is that you can't get the developer interest that you can to a market that has 100 million.
So you think that's the carrot they're going to offer these guys for rewriting all of their software? Do you think Microsoft's going to play along? Office is.
I think Microsoft. No, I don't think it's as critical as you think it is anymore. And besides that, if you bring out a dual boot machine, who cares? But the point is that, you know, I think Apple's been trying to get out from underneath I mean, that's where they've been bringing out products that kind of compete with Microsoft products.
That's true.
And ever since Microsoft or Macintosh Basic, the product that was killed by Microsoft, the people in the Mac community would love to just ditch Microsoft and go off and do their own thing. And, you know, and there's a lot of good stuff out there that runs on Unix machines. Yeah. I mean, some of it has crappy menuing systems, unfortunately, because the Unix guys, they think weird. But, you know, except for that picadillo, I think most of this stuff, I think you can outfit a OS X machine with no Microsoft material on it at all and do very well for yourself.
Would you get in line to buy one of these machines?
Asking me about buying stuff is funny.
I know you don't have to. But if for some reason you didn't get one, would you?
This is the kind of machine that if I was like a computer buyer, which I'm not. I'm a writer about computers. I don't go out, you know, I just basically testing stuff all the time, so I don't worry about buying stuff. But if I was a computer buyer and I had the lineup of different machines out there, and Apple, which has already developed its name as a kind of like I mentioned in the column tomorrow, kind of the Lexus compared to the Fords and Chevys of Dell and HP, I think I would buy the Lexus. I have a Lexus. I would buy a Lexus computer. I mean, something that's a little nicer. It's maybe you might think it's better made. It probably is the same company in China making them all, but definitely a better looking machine with a lot of cachet. I would get the Macintosh in a minute.
All right. Well, there you have it, John. Thank you for on such short notice for coming on the show.
Anytime, Leo. You know me.
So there you have it, John C. Dvorak. He says It's a done deal, and it's a great idea. You heard me. I just don't buy it.
Why do you think it's a bad deal, Leo?
All right, here, I'll give you the 3 reasons. All right? Reason number 1, all your software has to be rewritten, and it is non-trivial. I know everybody's going crazy saying, oh, no, the drivers are already there. Believe me, Adobe, just because Adobe makes a Windows version of Photoshop and a PowerPC version of Photoshop doesn't mean it's easy at all to make a Intel X version of Photoshop. That's just a whole new kettle of fish. And no matter what, you don't just recompile. You rewrite, and it's a lot of work. And, they went through this 10 years ago. I don't know if they're going to go through it again. The only thing that might convince them is maybe there's a giant market, so maybe we will. Secondly, why x86? Why not Athlon? Why not Opteron? Why saddle yourself with a company that's at the end of the line? It's just, it doesn't make any sense.
Hey, Roger?
No, I was just wondering, did you mean end of the line for Intel or just for the x86 family?
Well, end of the line for x86. You got to make a decision. Are you going Itanium, or are you going? You think it'll be an Itanium? By the way, let me introduce Roger Chang, who's somehow taken the place of David Prager. I don't know how it happened, but it's magic. Roger is writing about games for GameSpot over at CNET. And by the way, Roger, maybe you have some insight. How did CNET get this story?
Well, actually, I work for GameSpot, and the way CNET actually separates its division, they keep it pretty much behind closed doors.
Right. Let's go back. So anyway, those are 2 points, and I'm sure there's a third, but address those, if you will, gentlemen. You think it's a good idea, Patrick?
I just think in terms of the sheer volume of the chips and the fact that they've got to be able to get the chips cheaper. They've got to have access to better chipsets. It just seems like from Dvorak had a really good point. If they're tapping into an architecture that's going out to 125, 175 million PCs a year, it's a lot easier to get deals.
So you're thinking they had to for economic reasons?
I think they probably had to for economic reasons, and it's probably getting really difficult to compete. With there's still. The reason Intel always held on to the megahertz numbers on the processors is because the marketing people always said if people went in and they go for the biggest number of megahertz, even if the performance is unrelated. That's why Cyrix did branding that sort of upsold their, from their clock speed up to what their actual performance was. AMD's done that.
You think Microsoft's going to rewrite Microsoft Office and this is exactly the moment Microsoft's been waiting for to dump Apple.
Well, how important is Microsoft Office?
It's the number 1 selling application on Macintosh.
What percentage? But what percentage of the users actually use it?
Well, you have to have it if you want to live in a Windows world and you want to use a Mac.
By the way, here's my third. And I don't use a Mac. Open Office.
Well,
I use Open Office. I don't live on Microsoft Office.
You can use Open Office on Mac, but you have to run X window. Here's the third reason. I think it's a very compelling reason. It's the Osborne effect. They're announcing now that in 6 months the Mini will be based on Intel, and in 18 months all of their products will be based on Intel. They're not going to sell one more Mac for 18 months. That's it. Who would buy a Mac now knowing you're going Intel and every bit of software you buy is obsolete? Yeah. This is a stupid move. I'm telling you. We're going to look back at this and say this is when Steve Jobs fell on his sword.
Nah, I don't know about that.
All right, Kevin, you explain it to me.
This is so exciting. I'm stoked. I have 2 Macs, I have 3 PCs, and the only reason I don't just have one computer is because I want OS 10, and I also want to be able to play my games.
I do like a dual boot. And then Dvorak brought that up. A dual boot PC Mac is attractive.
But that's a total fantasy.
You don't think that'll happen?
It can happen if it's based on Intel chips. And the other thing is you don't have to dual boot at all. They can run a nice little emulator that runs inside
that's
OS
a good point.
10.
That's a good point.
That would be native on the x86-based processor, so you really won't see the slowdown that you would if you're running it in like a processor emulation type mode.
You could do. You're exactly right. You don't have to do a dual boot. You could just have.
I'll buy emulatable or hackable, but I don't see Steve ever signing off on doing a dual boot. Macintosh system.
Why are you so stoked about this then, Kevin? What? Let's say you can only buy a Mac Intel. Is it the dual boot that gets you excited?
Well, the main thing that gets me excited is that I've always been a huge fan of Apple hardware. The way they design things, the computer. If you take apart a G5, open it up, play with it, upgrade it,
inside.
Everything is laid out so clean and so well, and the power supply, every piece of that computer is just so well engineered. It blew me away. And I would love to I would pay a few extra $100 for a nice Apple that could run my, not only my Mac applications, but my Windows as well.
Robert Heron, what do you think?
I see this maybe as a first stage for Apple in terms of creating competition for Microsoft in the operating systems suite down the road. If their software suddenly is x86 compatible, then what's to keep them from, maybe making a better operating system and possibly throw more competition to Windows?
See, that's a great question, Robert, because are they going to release OS X as a standalone product that you can install on any x86? You don't think so?
Apple's a hardware company.
It's true. You're right.
They are not a software company.
Well, there's a nightmare in terms of legacy coverage for hardware on the Windows side. They've never had to address on the.
Then all of a sudden they would have to address that. You're right. I mean, they own the hardware. They don't have to worry about it. They know exactly
what
they're running.
I think what you do at that point is you do like what BOS did, and that is when you start to release it, you only select, here's 15 motherboards that we're compatible with. Here's 10 different chipsets. Here's 10 different video cards. Very limited hardware support.
Like an OS X certified motherboard, OS X certified video card. I mean, it's interesting because Apple has a lot of the content creation software. I mean, they have Shake, they have a few other 3D rendering.
Motion, Live.
Oh, they Final Cut. Video space.
So, I mean, it would be feasible that, Steve could be thinking that, there's so many people kind of already invested in that software and that technology and that kind of learning that they had to do for it, that they'll want to switch over, down the road when they require more powerful hardware and they require, updated software to run it. It's like granted it's running on the architecture, but from their point of view, it should still feel and look like an OS X Macintosh.
I could see this if, PowerPC was dead, if IBM wasn't innovating, if it were kind of a moribund processor family, and I can see making the move. But IBM is an innovator. They're the first to use copper. They're doing this cell chip. I know Steve Jobs poo-poos the cell chip, but I think it's going to be
but what's the software transition? You know what I mean? It's like, what's worse, the software transition from the G5 to the cell processor, or the software transition from the G5 to
Intel?
The Intel.
Easily. The cell processor has a PowerPC controller chip. Now I'm speculating, but because it's a PowerPC controller chip, it's PowerPC family. I think it's going to be an easier transition, a much easier transition. Look what happened. Microsoft has gone to PowerPC for Xbox. PlayStation has gone to cell for the PlayStation 3. Apple is going upstream. They're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, but those are also relatively closed platforms, and they're primarily looking at gaming performance.
But they're going to sell millions, and gaming performance is very similar to 3D rendering, to MP3 conversion, to digital video. It's the stuff we do. I think they're going against the trend in processors right now.
They may be bucking the trend in processors, but I think what they're really going after here is they've realized that people won't switch unless they have that, certain application or that certain game that can run on their Mac. And the true way to do this, the best way to do it, would be to run native x86 base, where you wouldn't have to have a crazy emulator. It could just run right inside of OS X.
But remember that most of these games are written to a Windows API, to a DirectX API. They're more tied to Windows than they are tied to Intel. So you have to run Windows.
Right, you would have to have the kernel running inside there. But there's just like the way a virtual PC operates right now, how you can launch a Windows-based application directly from the taskbar. It would be the same thing, but without the emulation.
So what is Microsoft's take on this? Is this good for Microsoft or bad for Microsoft? Does Bill Gates support this? Because if Bill Gates says there's no way they're going to be able to run Windows on this thing, they're not going to run Windows on it. And do you think Bill Gates is going to say that? Or is he going to say, oh, good, another chance to make some money? I don't think so.
Well, why would he say there's no way, though? I mean,
because it's a huge threat. First of all, it's a threat. If this works, it's a threat to Windows. And he doesn't. I think inherently he doesn't like this whole idea. It's Apple saying, "Hey, we're going to move over to your side."
Oh, I think he hates the idea. But the thing is that he can't stop it. If it's x86 based, anyone can put Windows on there, as long as Apple allows it. I know Apple could stop it if they wanted.
Yeah, and I just think that if normal users are going to do it, it has to be with the cooperation of Microsoft. Because they own, for one thing, they own the emulator, Soft PC.
Would you buy one, Leo?
Oh, of course. If I'd buy a dual boot Windows Mac machine, I guess I would. I mean, most of us, all of us live in a dual processor world. We have Windows and Macs. And that's a satisfactory solution for me right now. I do most of my work on Macs, but, this tablet PC is great. I mean, I'm using it for, as a date book. $2,000 day timer.
Pretty expensive date book.
It is, but it's great.
Big, breakable, and it won't fit in the pocket. And by the way, it'll last a half a day.
It's almost as small as my day timer. It only costs 10 times more.
It's interesting. I noticed that somebody was commenting on one of the issues Apple had with the cell processor was that there was no VMX AltaVec, or there wasn't a sophisticated.
Doesn't need it.
Sophisticated AltaVec.
Doesn't
support.
need it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole machine is an AltaVec machine. It's Symbian hardware. I mean,
but they'd have to redo all of the code that was made for AltaVec.
Oh yeah. Well, that's true. Well, they're going to redo code no matter what now.
Mm.
I mean, look, there's no question you've got OS 10 in the lab running on Intel. I mean, they've had that all along.
Yeah, Marklar project is what they call it.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy. I'm not worried about the operating system. I'm not worried about drivers. I'm just application developers. Who you're going to leave behind. Maybe you won't leave Macromedia behind or Adobe behind. Although none of these companies have much love for Apple anymore.
It would be interesting to know just what percentage of either, especially Macromedia or Adobe, what percentage of their sales are still to the Macintosh platform.
It's telling that Steve's making this announcement at the developers conference. Clearly, the announcement is he's going to have to really kiss some butt over there and tell the ISVs, the software vendors. We love you. We're going to support you. You've got to develop for this. He went through this in '94 when they went from PowerPC to PowerPC. This is even worse. Now, maybe it's easier in some respects because they know Intel. But you don't nowadays. You don't write to the processor. You write to the operating system. You write to the API.
So do you think the key here is going to be a suite that he announces saying, hey, this is the one suite where you'll be able to develop your application and easily port it to Windows if you want to, kind of selling them that?
He has to do something. You know what, Kevin? You hit the nail on the head. I hadn't thought of that, but that's exactly what he has to do. He has to say, we have tools that will develop. You write once, it runs on both. You're exactly right, Kevin. That's what he has to do. They may be able to do that. Now that's compelling.
So will I be able to get a G5 in a shuttle case in 3 years?
I don't think anybody will be getting a G5 in 3 years if this keeps up. You'll have to get an Xbox. All right, that's. I think we've done this to death. Let's just go around the horn and cast a thumbs up or thumbs down. Good for Apple, bad for Apple. Kevin Rose,
thumbs up.
Robert Heron,
I'd say thumbs down for the hardware side.
Roger Chang,
I would say thumbs up for software, thumbs down for the hardware.
Oh, you little weasel. Patrick Norton?
Hey, if it makes for a cheaper Mac, great, but I still don't believe it's going to happen.
I believe it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be the end of the line for Apple. I'm very disappointed. Item 2, WiMAX. Patrick, you talked with Intel about WiMAX this week.
Yeah.
What's the latest?
You remember the idea that WiMAX was mostly hype?
Yeah.
Well, it's still mostly hype, but it's hype that's going to be in. It's hype. They're actually claiming there's some interesting stuff online. Basically, WiMAX is a microwave replacement for cable or DSL distribution of broadband. It's going to be capped at about 1 megabit per second, and people are excited mostly because they have this vision of being able to go anywhere in a metropolitan area and connect to the net.
Let me just correct something. You said 1 megabit per second.
Yeah.
1 megabyte per second? More. It must be 1 megabit's that's like the old Home Connect. What are you talking about here? It's 11 megabits right now for 802.11b.
If they can guarantee a 1 megabit, that's still not that bad. If that's a solid guaranteed up and down, that's
Well, up would be
pretty good.
Not for down.
Well, think about, I have a 3 megabit right now, and I don't even hit 1 megabyte when I'm downloading certain things. This is more along the lines of a,
So you think if it's an ISP kind of a... All right.
Is WiMAX line of sight?
No. It is definitely not line of sight. That's part of what's exciting about it.
No, you're right. Typical end-user WiMAX bandwidth is expected to be in the range of 512 kilobits to 2 megabits. So you're right. So really it's competing not with Wi-Fi. It's competing with it's an ISP solution. It's competing.
Yeah, that's what I said.
DSL. All right. Okay. So this is guaranteed. Every single person is going to get 1 megabit.
Well, anyway.
Well, no. I'm curious.
It comes across like a utility, something that would be provided, rather than dealing with relatively slow modem speeds. Right. Just plain old telephone service.
Right.
You can at least have a megabit anywhere that's as free as water per se.
Well, I don't know about free as water, because what's interesting is basically this summer they're going to start doing WiMAX as a fixed WiMAX tests are going to start this summer, and they expect it to start rolling out in the very late winter or early spring of 2006. And the idea is it's basically fixed to your house or fixed to your business as a competitor to cable or DSL. The next stage is going to take about another year. Or about a year behind is going to be mobile WiMAX, which is going to be urban metropolises primarily being covered. The Wi-Fi distribution is kind of, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea, and I think for smaller towns it works pretty well. But it's definitely been up in arms for wireless distribution anywhere other than Philly, I think.
Right.
Do you see this as something like maybe a second generation of what Ricochet was trying to do, or is it what cities?
It was amazing.
Well, I think the true second generation of Ricochet is going to be 3G, 3G and 4G coming over cell phones.
That's RF. This is at microwave frequencies. So yeah. So
there's going to be between 3G, WiMAX, existing Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi hotspots. Sprint's talking about taking advantage of WiMAX because basically you can cover more territory with fewer cells. You know what I mean? You don't have to roll as many trucks to get the network up and running. Or you can take what is essentially a whole lot of Wi-Fi cells and reduce the number of them.
So essentially, it's kind of an intermediate technology between Wi-Fi and 3G.
It's a competitor.
It's a competitor to 3G.
Because remember, the idea though
it's cheap to roll out, much cheaper than 3G.
It's much cheaper than 3G, but 3G is also regulated. 3G is restricted in how it can be distributed based on having to be associated, with the cell phone network, and basically having to deal. The idea is it's a pure data technology, whether or not it's not designed. It's not a
voice technology.
Voice technology is being repurposed for data,
right.
Which is one of the issues that's coming up with 3G. Because certainly Sprint, all of the networks have played games here and there with whether or not you can actually access their network over particular cell phones, or how you can, either by shutting off Bluetooth or turning it on, or allowing or not allowing USB connections. And WiMAX is, and the other thing that Intel says is they're investing more money in 3G than they are in WiMAX, and they're pretty heavily invested in WiMAX. But I think both of those, there's going to be a lot of competing technologies in, probably about 2 years to bring broadband, at least in the major urban markets.
And that's great. Just the whole point is, who cares? Competition's good. I don't want to say co-opetition for. Competition is good. It drops prices. It's good for consumers. So that's good no matter what, whether you want to use WiMAX or not.
Yeah.
Is it symmetric for the most part?
That's a really good question that I haven't seen addressed yet.
See, that would be, if I could get a megabit up and down, I'd be very interested. That's a T1 line, almost a T1 line. That's of interest, right?
VoIP is also interesting in that respect.
Oh, yes.
With cell phones now incorporating.
Well, that's the limit on Skype, is it's not the downstream, it's the upstream that's keeping us from sounding great.
Right.
So, final issue, because we're running out of time here, and I'm going to give this one to Kevin Rose. I should really give it to Robert Heron. ICANN has approved the XXX domain name. Are you happy, Robert?
I'm happy.
Now instead of strippers.com, it's strippers.xxx.
It sounds like it's for the industry, so why not?
I think it's a good thing just to have. I know you say you're setting up a red light district on the internet, but at least we know where it is now. The red light district's there; it's just everywhere now. Let's move them all off. Can you make the porn guys go to XXX?
I think they would want to.
Well, some wouldn't.
That means someone would have to start regulating.
Right.
Decide what kind of content is considered adult.
Well, in theory, you do it now with .edu and .mil and .gov. You could. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't say if you're going to have an adult. Well, I'll give you a good example. Playboy.com. They're never giving up Playboy.com. And they don't want to be Playboy.XXX because they don't consider themselves XXX.
But I mean, none of the existing sites are going to give up their existing URLs. And, maybe news sites, but I mean, think about all the squatting that's done every time somebody comes up with .biz or .tv.
Right.
It won't make filtering a lot easier for parents to use.
Oh yeah.
XXX.
That's why I like it. Or if you want to, or conversely, if that's what you're looking for, you know where to go. You know what you're getting. I think, frankly, we should register TWiT.XXX, just in case.
Well, mostly you want to register it just so somebody doesn't, link to donkey stuff.
TWiT.XXX. Interesting that you bring up donkey.
They also approved, and this didn't get as much attention, .mobi. What's that for?
It's a really .mobi's really funky. Is that
for bald mix artists?
No, it's a cell phone's content specific address.
So like if you went to a kind of a WAP site.
Yeah.
It would
be basically this would be there's not a whole lot of information out on it, but the idea is that this is it's also not a lot of information of how proprietary this format would be or closed.
Oh, it's not. It's not just a TLD. It's a format.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever happened? Was it WAP? Was that what it was called? Remember there was that protocol?
Access protocol?
No, that for the. Yeah, maybe it was. It was for small handheld websites.
Yeah, for cell phones.
Yeah, WAP. Yeah. Whatever happened to that?
It's still out there.
Are there WAP sites?
There's versions of all different types of sites that you can access over WAP.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just don't think it didn't really catch on now.
Maybe .mobi will.
Well, it's Microsoft, Nokia, and Vodafone.
Oh, well, there you go. there you go. Anything else anybody is anxious to talk about? Roger, you see any exciting new games on the horizon?
Summer, believe it or not, for gaming is generally kind of the dry season.
Kids are outside. They're enjoying this fresh air.
When September starts rolling around, you'll see a lot of new games. Everyone's basically waiting for all the 360 stuff to start pouring out, or at least the announcements for 360 stuff to start pouring out, because that's supposedly going to be the first next-gen console on the market. Everyone wants to see what the games are for that particular system.
Right.
But from what I understand, every time a new generation of consoles come out, there's actually a dip in game sales because most people are usually saving up.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen to Apple for the next 18 months. Get ready, Steve. Jeez. Oh, we're going to wait.
So should I hold off on buying my new G5 until later when they're like...
Well, what you tell me. What do you think?
I just bought a PowerBook. I need to sell it.
Exactly.
I'm going to do a buy it now for like 4 hours right now on eBay.
You see what I'm saying here? This is bad.
Or the classic Apple hardware quickly.
But you know what? It's kind of weird because there's a lot of people like me who are looking at currently looking at upgrading Mac hardware just to take advantage of the new Final Cut Pro software, the new Shake, all the new kind of compositing and video editing software, because there's a lot of post-production houses are now moving more independent, and they're trying to get away from larger studios that rely on Avid and want to be able to do stuff on their own without.
Well, the good news is because Apple makes those programs, they'll appear on Intel immediately. But it's just the non-Apple programs you're going to be waiting for. Look how long it took Quark to do a PowerPC version of Quark Express. It took.
So you don't think it would be quicker with the next x86 architecture? You think it'd be longer?
Yeah. It's you got Big Endian versus Little Endian.
Do anything?
Yeah. Well, that's true. But I mean, it took 3 or 4 years. People had to use OS 9 until very recently if they wanted to use Quark.
I still have OS 9.
Good. Maybe it'll run on Intel.
Actually, with Basilisk, I can kind of sort of run OS 8.
I still have my OS 7.5 installed this somewhere.
Wow.
Just kidding.
What's the oldest version of Apple you run? We have a contest. All right, gang. I think we've done enough. 2 twits in 3 days is more than anyone should really have to do. I thank you, Roger Chang, for dialing in. It's great to have you. We're going to have to send you a recorder so you'll sound as good as the rest of us. Next week, let's use TeamSpeak, Robert, and maybe that'll make it a little bit better.
Certainly.
Don't know what happened to David Prager. I think maybe it was because I insulted G4. Do you think it had to do with the server up the guy's butt? He disappeared.
Of course, the server up the guy's butt, I'd be more worried about the audience than David, but I think David got confused. I think he got cut off and then came back in and didn't understand what was going on with the Dvorak guy.
Oh, maybe that's
so he wasn't doing it at G4 and Hirschhorn came over and pressed the button.
I think maybe. Could have happened. Oh, well. We can talk freely since none of us here have anything to do with it. Kevin Rose, Robert Heron, Patrick Norton, Roger Chang. I'm Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll find out what happens tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a special episode to recant. What do you call it? Recant?
Recap?
Recap? No, you take it all back.
Recant.
Recant. I got it right the first time. I can't stand it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to see if I can get into the WWDC.
We should go down. Let's all just go down. We'll say, hey, we're here.
Yes.
We're the Twits. We're the Twits. Are you moving up here? There's still some debate over that. Are you?
Yeah, still going back and forth, but it looks like it. We'll find out. I'll let you know more next week.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. That's it for episode 8 of This Week in Tech. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for joining us. If you want to know more about This Week in Tech, visit our website, thisweekintech.com. While you're there, we'd appreciate it if you'd contribute. This Week in Tech is free, but your donation keeps us going and flowing without commercials. Our recommended donation is a mere $2 a month recurring subscription. If you have a question for This Week in Tech, leave voicemail on Skype at This Week in Tech. Or you can call or fax 206-339-TWiT. You can also email a WAV or MP3 to questions at thisweekintech.com. Please begin your question with your name or handle and location and keep it to under 30 seconds. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next Sunday on This Week in Tech. I have some banner left over from last time. Let's use that.
Is it the Witty and Charming banner?
All right, guys.
Went over like the cheese demo.
The cheese demo. I'll never forget that. Patrick snoring in the back while I'm trying desperately to explain digitization using cheese.
I was very tired. I'd been up very late running Smart.
That was so depressing. I mean, this was like in the first 6 months of Call for Help. And I'm using slicing cheese to show sampling, right? And I have this long brick of cheese and I'm slicing it. And it's not going very well, and I've got sweat on my arms.
By the way.
No, well, in conception it is, maybe not in execution. I mean, it just was flopping. And I'm struggling around with this, and it's just not working. I'm breaking into a sweat. And then I look up, and there in the back of the studio, Patrick Norton, fast asleep. I'm not kidding. You were out. And it was it. It was all over for me. All my career ended right there. All right. We have enough banner to last us for several shows now. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is This Week in Tech, a special midweek edition, episode 8A for June 8th, 2005. We decided to release an extra edition of This Week in Tech this week due to the big Apple Intel announcement. We recorded this on Tuesday, June 7th, 2005, the day after Steve Jobs' keynote speech. Patrick Norton joined me at the Thirsty Bear Brewery next door to the Worldwide Developer Conference at Moscone Center. Also joining us, Ray Slakinski and August Trometer, very well-known Macintosh developers, the authors of the great iPodder X podcasting client. As Mac developers, they had something to say about Steve's announcement, and of course, they were also very interested in what Steve showed as part of the new iTunes 4.9 podcasting capabilities. Something that kind of eats into their business. And one program note on this 30-minute broadcast, Patrick does disappear briefly in the middle. That's because he went out to get more batteries so we could continue to record. We're still working on our field kit. So without further ado, episode 8A of This Week in Tech.
The BBC would like to announce that the next scene is not considered suitable for family viewing.
And it looks as though we're in for a splendid afternoon sport on this, the 127th Upper Class Twit of the Year show.
And now for something completely different.
We are all Twits now.
What a great twit!
podcasting now.
Patrick Norton is here and with us on this special edition. This is a very special TWiTcast.
A fine special Worldwide Developers Conference.
All right, let me get the Shure SM58 a little farther from your mouth. Now, so you know how to work these.
Rock and roll.
See, it's just like yours.
I know.
You take the red muff off.
You've been trash talking my microphone for like a month.
I have one.
Oh, it's an SM58, just like Patrick.
Actually,
it's a punk rock.
You know where I got this? It's a news gathering microphone.
A news gathering device?
Yeah, an NGD.
So this is a professional news gathering device we're using for the podcast. None of this amateur podcasting technology.
No, we're pros, baby. This is a $799 recorder.
Actually, the best thing about these is you can hammer nails with these microphones, and then you go right back into the field.
It works.
Have you ever seen like the ones at like the classic like at CBGB's or like the Continental back
in
New York?
Dented.
They're square. Yeah. You can see where they've been hammered around the condenser inside the microphone.
David Letterman has one that he uses for the crowd warm-up, and it's on a long cable, and he literally swings it around. He bangs it on stuff. I mean, it's pretty funny actually watching him do it.
Big guy.
He's
got a lot of repressed anger.
And it's very dented. The metal grit. So also with us from
it's greater importance, we should point out.
Yeah, well, no, not at all. But
yes,
from ladies and gentlemen, for podcast people, this is like rock
These
stars.
are the guys with the clue.
Yeah, from the folks at iPodder X, Ray Slakinski, who does the back-end Python stuff, and August Trummeter, who is the UI guy. And the funniest thing, and by the way, we should say, we are at the Thirsty Bear Brew Pub here in downtown San Francisco, just right next door to Moscone Center.
As the resident sober member of the podcast, I'd like to point out that it's still a fabulous place to eat. You don't have to partake in the brews, but if you do, I hear they're quite tasty.
A little later on, we'll try some fish cheeks because that's what they're famous for.
You know, I've given up on fish cheeks. I'm on to oxtail now.
Okay.
This is too much scraping and scooping with the oxtail.
This is
fish cheeks are nice and moist.
Not if it's done right.
This is actually historic because these guys have been doing software together, iPodder X. For how long have you been doing iPodder X?
About 7-8 months, maybe 8 months.
And this is the first time they've met. They've never met.
Is that one of them interweb stories?
One of them interweb things, yeah. If you want some food,
sorry, but I need to on my tab.
Oh yeah, let's close that out.
You're going to start in order with the cocktail.
Yeah. We'll order some more. Okay. So we'll pause this podcast for a moment while I pay the bill. I'll put this on this goes on the business card. This goes on the TWiT card. I have a special card just for TWiT. And we want to thank all the contributors to TWiT who just bought Patrick Fish Cheeks. So how was it meeting each other for the first time? You met Monday, yesterday, or
Sunday night actually? And we've been working together for 8 months, and Sunday was the first time we ever actually met, and it was good.
And I cried and got into a fetal position, going, "Why, oh why?"
Did you hug him?
You were
Come on.
blonde.
Did you? August, that's a girl's name, isn't it? No, but were there any surprises? I mean, meeting each other.
Ray's shorter than I thought he would be.
He sounds so much taller on the phone.
Neither one of these gentlemen are pale. They're tan. They have muscle tone.
They do.
This is not classic coders. So you guys obviously get out of the house and play. Or is there a sun lamp at the desk or something?
The radiation from the monitor helps tan the
keeps
skin.
us warm.
Yeah.
I like it because Ray's wearing a Canada hat. Isn't that cute? He's got the maple leaf on his cap.
Blame Canada. You guys almost had a hockey season. Well, you guys did have a junior hockey season.
You know, it's interesting how Canadians went through that because, they really were going through withdrawals. So they just got into the, like the secondary leagues.
Which they have in Canada.
There's a lot of it. I was watching TV. There was a lot of it.
What's the weirdest thing you guys, what's the strangest thing, or what's the email, have you gotten any great emails from users, or like evil emails from users? Or
Every time I talk to Ray, he's complaining about I'm sorry. Just kidding.
What is amazing, we get a lot of great email from the users. Some with legitimate concerns and complaints, and we try and resolve those as quickly as possible. Some full of compliments, and we always like those. But we never know what we're going to get in our email, and we've been contacted by a lot of people that it always knocks us over, and every day is a new day. And I think Ray said that we ought to just turn this into a reality show because we're just always walking around going, I can't believe I just got that phone call.
Do you Steve Jobs going to crush you just like Confabulator?
No, we didn't get that phone call.
He's starting to feel that way, I bet.
We'd at least like to have gotten would you guys mind consulting with us or something like that?
Just a tremendous work developing the podcast community on OS 10 with some brilliant software that's been available for everyone. So now the professionals are going to take it, and we're going to put it inside of iTunes where it belongs, and hopefully we can monetize it to the greater glory of the Apple community.
We knew that iTunes was coming, but we didn't think it was coming as soon as it was.
Right.
But we angled iPod or X to be a media aggregator turned out to be a very fortunate thing because now we can compete with more features than iTunes rather than the same feature set.
So you mean by doing RSS and stuff like that? I mean,
with movies and images,
right.
text, any kind of file.
But can't iTunes do movies?
It can do movies, but
not text.
Not text and not images, not other files.
It could do images if it did it to iPhoto.
Right.
So what did Steve? I mean, what did Steve say? Did he give us more information than he did on the Wall Street Journal thing?
Not really. He gave a quick demo where he showed a screen of where you can within the music store to select and choose podcasts.
You would buy them?
There was no buy information. It was just click, and then it was added. He mentioned that it was for free, but I'm not really sure how long that will last.
So he's going to do it through the store as a part of iTunes. Now, see, I thought he might use the radio interface because it's kind of more like the radio thing, but no.
No. And once they're in iTunes, along the side, it's like a little twisty for each particular podcast.
That's how you know it's a podcast? It's twisty?
And it has a download link. Yeah, it's not a...
Twisty is a technical term, right?
Is it twisty if it spins then it means it's getting it? What is it?
The little triangle that it'll have the feed name and you click on the triangle and it pops down and lists all the available files.
That's twisty. Is that what you call it?
That's what I call it.
He's not a user interface guy, is he?
No, he's not.
No, it's a twisty. They don't have twisties in Python.
No, they don't.
I think that's a triangle. What do they call it? What is the
disclosure triangle?
Disclosure triangle. See, August knows the technical term for it. Every widget has its own name because you have to know what to call it, right? It's the disclosure triangle. Disclosure.
What the hell is a disclosure?
Well, when you click it, it discloses what's underneath. It's like it shows what's.
I like twisty.
Yeah, but I was thinking it was like a little spiral or something. Twisty's not as descriptive. That's the problem with it.
I'm sorry.
I mean, but it does sound a little threatening, I guess, to people who are making podcast clients because you've got it built into iTunes. Do you think it has the same kind of functionality from the point of view of an end user who just wants simple functionality? For instance, will they list 8,000 podcasts in the iTunes Music Store?
There's a lot of questions that a lot of people have. That's one of them. I have a hard time thinking that shows like what is the sex show? The
Don and Drew, or
Don and Drew too. There's a lot of
East Radio,
a lot of very edgy adult content.
Adam's got all that crap. I mean stuff. So Adam, what happens to Pod Show? Even I mean that kind of. Although if there's no financial model, then it's just good for everybody.
Right, but I mean, if they see certain things that have certain podcasts that are bringing in a lot of traffic, which I'm sure they'll be able to track that within the store. What am I trying to say? If they see a lot of traffic,
they can monetize it.
They can just add 99 cents.
Well, especially if they did it with Audible or something like that.
Right.
I'm really surprised that there wasn't any Audible mention at all.
So you don't think it's Audible related?
No, and that really surprises me because the magazines, the newspapers, all of the serialized content that you can get through Audible, it would seem to be unnatural to do something like that, and it's not there.
All I can say is if you were to ask me about that, I couldn't tell you.
Well,
if you were to say something about that, I would have to say I don't know. Don't look at me like that.
So do you know anything about Audible?
No, I'm afraid not.
and syndicating their stuff? No?
Nothing.
That's a shame.
You were telling me you saw Dan Carrillo, the guy who wrote Watson.
Dan Wood.
Dan Wood, I mean, Carrillo, whatever his
software, yeah. Who wrote Watson, and Apple came out with Sherlock, which pretty much took away Watson's market. And so I met Dan Wood last night, and he was talking. I told him about iPod X. And he goes, "Oh, so you got Sherlocked."
But you guys, I mean, Ray, really do have other features that it doesn't look like they're going to put into.
Right. Well, we have BitTorrent support, which they're definitely not going to be doing.
The labels will kill them.
Right. And we also do video. Like System will soon, you'll be able to get that via iPod or X, as well as other video content like Rocket Boom and whatnot. So we have that ability. Plus, we have the text stuff. So if there's
you do some nice things.
Images,
you convert the file, you make it bookmarkable, and you do a lot of neat stuff that's convenient for the user.
Well,
will you be the power tool?
We started off just getting the audio file, and that's all we did. But everybody kept asking for these other features. Is Apple ever going to put in those features? That would be the big question. Right. So yeah, we're definitely going to be the power tool that people are going to say, podcasting is great on iTunes, but I really needed to do such and such. Apple doesn't do it and probably won't, so I'm going to come over here.
Right.
So we'll get that.
So it's good for podcasting. That'll ultimately benefit you.
Right.
Patrick, we haven't seen each other since we talked about the Intel announcement. It was speculative the last time we talked. Mm-hmm. It's happened.
Yes.
Any surprises? You were at the keynote.
I was at the keynote. It was the biggest surprise was listening to, you guys know how it works. The Apple's keynote presentations, any kind of press presentation, any kind of presentation Apple does, incredibly, they are the bomb-proof gold standard for presentations. Part of the reason they do that is they load the room with enthusiasts, or what they usually do if it's at a Cupertino, they load the back third of the room with Apple employees and engineers, especially the ones that worked on the project. So if anybody in front doesn't know that they're supposed to clap really loud, they know they do because they're afraid of the thunderous applause that's coming from behind them like a freight train. And it was really interesting because Steve does this whole thing where he's like, this is where the Mac is at. We're selling $1 billion, and this is where iTunes is at. 82% of the market, our share is up. Yeah. And there's like, now on to the, some big announcements. And there's like quiet, like pin drop quiet. Like there's a butterfly farting in Marin, and I can hear it now in the middle of Moscone West. And he's like, it's true. And the big words flash up on the screen behind him, and this person like 2 rows behind me, it's like, oh. And there's this sound of like, there's like 3 guys who obviously have been working at that super secret double life of OS X room in Cupertino. We're like, yeah! And there's like 50 people who are like, huh? And there's a bunch of people who are like,
yeah. All the developers who are going, uh-oh.
Developers, users, I was sitting in a pool of press people who are all like, wow, he did it. You know what I mean? Like this chasm has been crossed.
It's very gutsy. Now, in retrospect, we've absorbed it for 24 hours. Your opinion on it?
You know what? Part of the reason I haven't bought like a G5 notebook is because they don't exist, and because the notebooks are flatline at the G4. Essentially, they've crippled the iBooks because they really can't do a lot with the performance on the beautiful titanium books. The desktop, they're going dual processor. They haven't been able to hit 3 gigahertz. The power consumption of the PowerPCs is through the roof. And it's, I've read some really, we were talking about, you're like, they should be going to the cell architecture. How can they be going to Intel? This is insane. You're the one who should be like,
rub that
is it okay now? Well, it was interesting. I was reading some articles, and a bunch of people are saying there's a lot of stuff you can do when you're 2 years out on a video game platform in terms of the cell processor and the way it sets up. Because you've got a whole stack of what amount to like supercharged DSPs.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. There is a Linux version coming out for that, but there's a lot of people saying it's a non-trivial transition. And I think you also come back to that same question: is why not a cell processor? Probably because of power consumption, right. And in terms of, they need a commodity part to be competitive.
Ray in August came up with an interesting conspiracy theory on that. August was pointing out that because the Xbox 360 is based on this PowerPC, this triple-core PowerPC, it might be that Apple couldn't get them. You thought that maybe they'd been...
That maybe Microsoft made a deal with IBM saying, we want to buy all of these, but we also want exclusivity for a year and a half, whatever. And that could possibly have been just the last straw. I mean, they weren't getting the speed that they needed.
And you can't get the new one.
Yeah.
And maybe Sony had the same kind of deal saying, we're going to keep the cell to ourselves.
But isn't there some sick little angry part of your heart that sees like this great, like, you take the Apple style, you throw it on an Intel compatible processor, you get it out in the market, people can use the OS 10, people will be able to, God help them, run Windows XP on it, assuming, unless never ships.
And we talked about this earlier. Phil Schiller was very clear that we will never sell OS 10 without an Apple box. That's our business's hardware. But he did say that you'd be able to buy a dual boot platform. And now Ray, who's, by the way, is a hacker at heart and started out that way. Yeah, I mean, how long, I know you're not doing this anymore, but how long before somebody figures out how to separate the hard?
6 months to a year.
Yeah.
If that.
So then at some point you'll be able to download OS 10 Intel and put it on your PC.
I know there's a lot of people taking that as a challenge, like right now that Apple says it will only run on Apple hardware. Well, that's just like putting the glove down.
Right.
Buddy Wank's like, and the Xbox is never going to move.
Right. So here's the question, and I know you know a little bit about this, that one of the conspiracy theories is this new Pentium D has built-in digital rights management, has copy protection, and that was key to Apple to making the move. And now this would make sense, because it's one way Apple could perhaps keep people from stripping the operating system off. It also might make Apple a better content platform for movies and music.
Intel's been saying that there's no super secret backdoor in the Pentium D. There's none of that stuff they were talking about where a few years ago at Windows Hardware Developer Conference, where there'd be like ring zero access, so the processor could parse the information without having access to the information and being able to write it. And that's the only way they're going to be able to separate the digital. The truth is like everybody I know, even like Intel people are like, Microsoft people, if you get them intoxicated far away from a responsible PR handler, would be like,
have you done that?
Me? If I got developers intoxicated for the purposes of leaking the product path, there's a reason that I no longer signed I will honor, a non-disclosure agreement, but there's certain areas where people give you information where you haven't signed a non-disclosure agreement. It's good to know.
Yeah.
So
what do they say?
They say that, they have to be really upset at the time, because if they're feeling good, they'll never admit it, but they basically come to the fact that there's a race, and the hardware is not going to do it. If there's hardware, you can get around it. If there's software, you can keep updating the encryption on it.
So hardware is not as good for DRM.
Hardware may be useful, and then what's interesting is Hollywood wants to, require hardware, because it needs to be in hardware, because software not safe, because we got our asses kicked on that whole DVD thing by a kid in, one of the dark countries up in Northern Europe.
Somewhere where they never sleep in the summer.
Exactly. Which is, they're still feeling pain in Hollywood about that, because it was uncrackable, you see.
Right.
And what they're starting to realize is, Moore's Law means uncrackable gets shorter and shorter every couple of years.
Well, in fact, that's what all the experts are saying now, is if you are planning on encryption and copy protection, you better also plan for it to be cracked and have a plan B and a C and a D and an E.
I mean, in terms of content delivery, Apple's biggest problem right now is the fact that Microsoft has sewn up a lot of relationships. They own they own the two largest delivery systems for Hollywood content online, with the MovieLink guys and the other stuff. They're fighting tooth and nail to get to Windows Media 10 and the HD stuff in there. I mean, all Apple has is the fact that they have superior video quality and a relatively bulletproof operating system.
Well, and they've been able to get under the radar because it's a good place to try stuff out. I think that's what the record labels thought. Oh, this music store will never go anywhere. It's 2% of the market. We can try this, and we don't expose ourselves. And now they're waking up. But if Apple suddenly is an Intel platform, and it's a big platform, he's not going to have the opportunities that he has.
I still think iTunes got the relationship with the record labels because they basically agreed to give the record labels all the money.
Yeah. Well, and they've never said that, how much it is. But, that's
they
always been the
impression. We don't make any money off of iTunes, but we sell a lot of iPods.
Exactly. So So I had the black sausage. Oh, albondigas. And
fish cheeks.
We're having fish cheeks. That's for August. The fish cheeks are for August. Say that. What's that called again? Cocochas. Enjoy your cocochas. Do they have those in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Are you from Minnesota? Where are you from?
Indianapolis,
Indiana. Where my publisher is. Yeah, that's where Q is. Well, bon appetito. So, August
voted in my hand.
We should explain that Ray writes the Python portion, or works on the Python portion, which is the underlying guts of iPod X.
Right.
And then, did you start, when you first did this, did you start using the Lemon code, or?
No, before the Lemon guys even started, I wrote one that was called PyPotter, which then became... Yeah. And because Adam did iPotter, which was the Apple script, pure Apple script, so I did PyPotter.
Because you could do it better with Python.
Right. So once that came out, August came in and did a UI layer on top of that.
Did you go to him? Did he find you? How did you guys... So you saw PyPotter and you said this needs a graphical user interface.
Yeah.
Are you a Cocoa programmer by trade?
That was actually the first thing I'd ever attempted.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you do for a living?
Web development.
Oh, interesting. In PHP or?
Do PHP, ASP, Cold Fusion.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So Cocoa was new to you.
Completely new.
How do you like it?
Love it.
Are you using Objective-C as your language? Yeah.
And the more I learn, the more I realize just how powerful it is.
It's great, isn't it?
And you get so much stuff for free.
Right.
I wanted in the very first version of iPod X, I wanted to add a movie player, and it was like 2 lines of code.
I know, because you got QuickTime Layer.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think Apple's really done that right. And it's interesting now, in retrospect, having made this announcement, it's clear that they really wanted to incentivize developers to do Cocoa applications. They supported Carbon because they had to, but I think it was clear that they wanted people on Cocoa because... Now, you're all Cocoa? You're 100% Cocoa?
Yeah.
So the pitch Steve gave is that, well, if you're Cocoa, it's, 20 minutes work. True?
I think, for the most part, pretty much.
So you're going to be able to move to Intel without...
We have some third-party frameworks that we're using that need to be recompiled, but if we weren't using those, it had been done already.
So your code would be fine. It's just these other guys. You don't own the source to that.
It is as easy as a checkbox.
Really? In Xcode?
Yeah.
In Xcode 2.1?
Yeah.
So you've been playing with that. They've shown you that and everything? Cool.
The checkbox did take us a little effort in order to find. We saw it demoed on the keynote.
So you know it's there.
And then we got the disk and we installed it. And this was before we went to any sessions. The sessions say, here's exactly where it is. And
but on your own, you had to...
But on your own, you're like, well, where's the options for this?
And where is it?
You look in your preferences and you end up double-clicking on something that doesn't seem like you should double-click on it, and you get it. And it was really funny. We ended up talking to some of the developers who actually implemented the whole Intel port thing, and we told them that finding the checkbox was probably the hardest part of the conversion, and they laughed and they said, it is kind of hidden.
We know. Well, so you don't have to... I mean, obviously, when you start a new project in Xcode, it probably says, does it say Fat Binary? What does it say? PowerPC, Intel? What is do you have a choice in when you do a new project?
No, it's when you build. It's part of the target properties. So when you're building, you choose if it's going to be a universal binary.
That's what they're calling it now?
That's what they're calling it.
Not fat. I thought that was a good marketing term. We're going to call it universal instead of fat.
Yeah, better idea. The fat binaries go back to the days when you were going from the 68,000 to the power for the seed chip. And but you know what? We did make it through that. It was painful, but we did make it through it too. And that was one of the ways they did it.
I guess among developers, one of the things that I hear, the IBM chip has the AltaVec subprocessor, whatever it is.
They call it what? MMX or
MMC.
Yeah.
And it was MMC and then became MMX.
Yeah, multimedia extensions. Well, they say it doesn't stand for that, but it just looks like it does.
There have been a lot of developers who have done a lot of really low-level customization and optimization to make...
For AltaVec.
Yeah, for AltaVec.
So what happens now?
That's the problem. And they say that it may kill some products.
Well, if you wrote stuff in assembler, you're dead, right? Yeah. I mean, if you didn't write it in high levels, Objective-C.
Yes and no. I mean, if it's taking you a lot of time in order to do that, universal binary, the Rosetta part actually does work quite well.
What's Rosetta? Tell me
that's pretty much the emulator.
That's the transitive software?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what layer that sits on, but you can run, your PowerPC binary on the Intel through this,
and there's middleware that's it's an emulator.
We ran
You run on it?
Yeah, we ran iPod X on an Intel machine through Rosetta, the translator, and it's completely transparent. Rosetta is Apple's name for it, but end users will never know about it, and it worked just fine. Everything ran.
And did it run at kind of a normal speed, or did it feel?
Oh yeah, didn't notice any speed problems at all.
You're a pretty lightweight, fast app though, so that may not be. I mean, you're not doing a lot of calculations, right? Because Ray's doing all the work, right? Python's really slow. I'm a Python fan, but it's interpreted. It's not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's bytecode. It's as fast as Java can possibly be.
Intermediate bytecode, right? So, what is the general reaction on the floor from developers? Dismay, excitement, worry?
I spend a lot of time in the Intel room, kind of listening to reactions, and for the most part, it's positive.
Really?
Yeah.
Even the little guys who are going to have to spend some money on this, they're saying this is something they want to do?
Yeah, I mean, this is a development machine, and I'm not sure how much I can actually say about it, but it's fast.
The $9.99 deal, you're going to do that? Get the Intel cross-platform?
We're thinking about it. One thing that we didn't like, we have to be honest, is it's $1,000. You get it for a year, but you have to give it back. You have to give it back. So basically, you're renting a machine for $90 a month.
Which is kooky.
Well, it's $90 a month if you do it now, but if you wait 2 months, the price jumps. It's now $120 a month.
So buy now, guys. But I mean, it is just a PC. I mean, it's not, you can buy a PC performance.
Sure. Phil Schiller, I saw say that there is a possibility of installing Windows on the box, but not a chance of installing OS 10 on another, like, white box or Dell machine.
Yeah, he said that we will never offer OS 10 without Mac hardware. You won't be able to install it on Windows generic hardware.
But you could then have a dual boot Windows Mac machine because you can install Windows on the Mac machine.
You could go out and buy a copy of Windows, put it on there,
and dual boot.
Now the thing that's more interesting, we talked about this in the last TWiTcast, is the notion of not even dual booting, but a window. You could have a Mac window and an Intel PC window, right? I mean,
well, look at virtual PCs. Look at all the emulation work that they have to do.
You don't have to do anything now.
Yeah, that's all at the window. Mind you, the people that worked all that time creating that emulation software really don't have much to do anymore.
They have Virtual PC for Windows, which run, you can run Linux in a window within Windows. Now, that's not really doing any emulation. It's just kind of putting a hole in Windows and putting Unix in there.
So that's what Virtual PC for the Mac will then become.
Yeah, that's the level of what it is, yeah.
It'll make porting applications from Windows to Mac also a lot easier, I think, because just the processor and the low-level stuff that you'd be working on would be the same.
Right. VMware still around? I mean, that was what VMware was it allowed you to have a virtual engine that you could run multiple operating systems in Windows. I mean, now, that's I would love to see a VMware for Intel that I have OS 10. You'd have to buy it from Apple. Obviously, the hardware would have to be Apple hardware. You wouldn't have the OS 10 part, but if you could buy a Windows disk and stick that in there, man, that would be cool.
Well, I'm wondering how long that's going to last.
You think Apple will stop that or Microsoft?
No, I think that...
you think Apple will sell software?
No, I think that home hobbyist hackers will have that running on a white box in probably less than a year.
Well, what would Apple do to keep people from putting OS 10 on a beige box or white box?
They could do things at the hardware level.
They used to have firmware. I mean, they used to have firmware. Right. You'd have to steal the firmware.
Right. And it's probably likely that
it's all in software now, though, right? Because Cherry OS, Pear OS wouldn't work if it weren't all in software, if there were a hardware component. So they'd have to go back to that, maybe. Yeah.
Well, it would be partially the Pentium, if the Pentium had something on the chip that would lock it. So that makes that conspiracy theory a whole lot more real, just from an install base.
Yeah, you'd say this.
If it's got such and such code on it, then you're allowed to install the.
That's kind of Bill Gates' wet dream, isn't it? Is I say, Windows the number in Windows is tied to the processor instead of some phony calling up and getting a number. It'd be tied to the processor. Well, I have to go now, but it's been fabulous. Enjoy the fish cheeks. I've already tipped the waiter, so you don't have to. August, it's really been great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
I love iPod X, and someday I know TWiT will be #1 on there. Right?
Hacker.
You hacker, you Ray. No, we keep getting beat by this Inside Mac guy. I don't know what's going. Who's number one of it?
Better than us. The current ratings say
Inside Mac Radio.
Radio. But
it's always been number one.
Is a Mac-centric application, so...
Oh, that's right. It's not our fault. Yeah. So when are you doing a Windows version so we can finally be number one?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
What the Windows platform?
We've heard rumors of that, and but who knows?
Okay.
I'm under an NDA. I can't discuss it.
Can you sign an NDA with yourself? I don't know. In any event, we love iPodder X, and we really appreciate what you've done. And it is the best way to get our podcasts, even over superior over just downloading it, as we know.
iPodder X officially?
What?
Do we officially endorse iPodder X?
Well, they're not paying me like they're paying Dave Slusher, so I'm not going to go out on a limb here. But you don't pay Dave that much, though. Give him $5 once a month, and he's happy, right?
I can't disclose how much.
We don't take advertising. We don't. Well, you can't afford us, even if you could afford us, because we don't take advertising. That's one of the reasons we do. We could say what we like and what we don't like. But no, I like iPodder X, and one thing we are going to do is a custom version of iPodder X, right, for TWiT listeners that will have the feeds built into it. And you'll just download it from our site, and you won't have to know anything. You just install it and run it.
For an extra $5, maybe you can make every copy of iPodder X download TWiT.
Well, it does. But you do this thing. You go there and you click this button, and you put in, and it works. It's amazing. We're in the directory, right?
Yes.
And we've been an iPodder X pick for at least a month.
Right, and during the top picks list.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You guys picked us, and that's you, not.
Yeah, that's not user.
We're not influenced by anything you might say here today at all.
The fish cheeks,
I gave you fish cheeks. What more could you ask for? Come on.
And we disappeared off the list.
Those are meaty fish cheeks. I gave them the best. I gave them my fish cheeks. All right. That's this has been a special edition of This Week in Tech, Tuesday edition. That's the way it is. Good night. God bless. That's it for this special midweek edition of This Week in Tech. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for joining us. If you want to know more about This Week in Tech, visit our website, thisweekintech.com. We'll have another edition Sunday night, Monday morning, as usual, episode 9. By the way, while you're at the website, if you want to keep This Week in Tech going commercial-free, please press one of those PayPal buttons and make a small donation. Our recommended donation is the $2 a month recurring subscription. It doesn't cost much, and it really does help keep us going. Not to mention, buys us fish cheeks from time to time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. It's hard to end these things. That's really the big problem I have.
Like bang, but with a whimper.
They always kind of just dribble off.
I don't know how you're going to edit this.
I can't edit it. We did it all out of order. I can't edit it. I'm not going to edit it.
We are actually doing okay because for a while it was like we were pretending that the other stuff hadn't happened yet.
But now we're all out of order. Thanks to you, August. No, it'll work fine because the fish cheeks... Oh, man, I feel like I've been in some sort of Einsteinian relativity box, and I have no idea what happened when or anything.
Just roll it, baby.
Just roll it. I just do it. It's right. Just do it.
It's exclusive.
And I will cut out the part where the waitress made eyes at me. She didn't. She didn't even notice me.
She might have
rolled her eyes. I'm putting those sunglasses back on. And Patrick, I want to thank you for the batteries.
Hey, glad to help.
Without which this podcast would never
or might have not got into a Einsteinian dilemma.
Yeah, we were in order until you showed up.
I knew I should have just stayed in the office fighting with the content management system. Gotta love the CMA.
You know,
kids.
you guys have a lot to say to each other. This is Mr. iPod Extreme. I mean, you both have iPod in your name. Does Apple say anything to you about that? They haven't come to you and said you can't say iPod, right?
Not yet.
That's their trademark, you know. Oh, I'm not going to say anything. Stop the record quick.